pile in here. We're about to get kick-started in a second here. We were just talking about where we live and where we're from. If you are joining this webinar live, please, if you want, enter in the chat where you're calling in from. I was talking about living in Halifax, Nova Scotia, which is the east coast of Canada. We're in the middle of a big snowstorm that's just about to start here, and so I'm hoping that I don't lose power or anything like that. Yes, Hans, I was just letting people know we were having this whole chat, thinking we were live and people could hear us, and no, they could not.
The new Zoom feature. Like we were in like a pre-room. So yeah, I'm based in London in the UK, but Adaptify is US based. Hey Joe, long time no see. Joe's better weather. He's based in Florida.
I'm jealous, but I'm actually, yeah, I'm going to be in the Dominican Republic in a couple of weeks for a vacation. So excited to get some sun. And hey, everybody who joined, we got Alex, we got Crystal, Justin, Mert. Hello, everyone. Feel free to type in the chat where you're calling in from. We're going to get kickstarted with this webinar. I'm just going to share my screen here, go full screen so we can see it. We're really excited to talk about proposals, especially for SEO agencies, because it's a competitive field that you're in, and winning business is important. It's important to stand out. So we're going to teach you how to do that with your proposal. And it's really cool because, well, I'll get into my background in a second, but there's a lot of crossover between Hans and I. So
Yes.
just real quick, I run a company called Proposify. We've been in business for 10 years. And before that, I ran an agency. We did web design development. We did a little bit of SEO and marketing work as well. We were primarily a web design and sort of app development agency. But that was where, I don't know if you could call it falling in love with proposals, but being intrigued by proposals and wanting software to make it more automated, more streamlined. And so that's why I started Proposify. And I'm going to kick it over to Hans to just briefly introduce himself.
Yeah, I'm Ans. I'm co-founder of Adaptify. So we are a marketing platform helping marketing agencies save time, both selling and delivering SEO to the customers. I have a somewhat similar background in uh, like also design background. I've worked at software companies and also at marketing agencies, both as a freelancer and in-house. And when I started my own business, I really liked working with marketing agencies again. So I think that kind of organically made us kind of do SEO delivery for marketing agencies. So I'm quite excited to be on this webinar as well.
Yeah. Yeah, we've got a lot of really cool stuff to share with you. This is kind of a recap, an intro to what you're going to learn on this webinar. So we were going to talk about our tools, Adaptify and Proposify, and show you how to do some cool stuff with them to speed up and automate it. But it's not just going to be solely a software demo. We're going to talk about, whether you're using PDF, Word, InDesign, whatever it is you happen to use for proposals, just how to make them more compelling, more differentiate you from your competitors. And so we're going to talk about, first of all, what should you include in your proposals? What shouldn't you send? How to position yourself to stand out from the competition, how to price, how to really make clear the value of what you're offering to the client, increasing the efficiency, increasing deal size, and then using tools to speed up and automate some of the mundane manual work. So with no further ado, we'll kick it off. We'll get into it, and I do want to just plug. We've got special offers at the end of this webinar. So for those who stay on, there'll be a couple cool offers that you're not going to want to miss out on. So first of all, why do visuals matter in a proposal? I feel like I've been talking about this now for maybe a decade or so running Proposify, because I've had agency owners say to me like, yeah, I wouldn't use anything, like we kind of just send emails with like notes, or we just show the pricing. A lot of times like agencies will send a proposal, but it'll kind of like look like this document above the visual here of kind of like, it doesn't look bad. It's just a Word document. There's really no visuals behind it. And so one thing that we found in our stats, so every year we dig through our data in Proposify, we look at millions of proposals that are going out of our system, and we kind of look for trends and analyze them. And one thing that we found was that proposals with at least one image actually have a higher close rate than ones without images. We haven't gone too deep in terms of like analyzing what those images are. They could be team bios, they could be, case study work, that kind of thing. But there is a little bit of quantitative data to say that visuals matter, and so if you're going to put in your proposal information about your agency and what you do and the value of what you do, make it look great, make it look compelling because it actually matters. And in line with that, positioning is really important. And I don't know if anybody here has heard of April Dunford or read her book, Obviously Awesome. If you have, mentioned in the chat April Dunford, but it's a really great book on positioning. And it really clarified for me what positioning actually is, because we hear about it all the time. Is it a tagline? Is it a mission statement? It's none of those things. I'm not going to go too deep because we could do a whole webinar on positioning, but I wanted to bring it up because I think what's really important when you're putting together a proposal is that um, you're standing out amongst your competition, right? Your client is going to be looking at maybe another proposal, maybe five other proposals from similar vendors who do similar things. So what is it about you that stands out? And I think if you know your positioning, then that has to weave its way throughout your entire proposal, from the executive summary to the pricing to every facet of your proposal. Show how you're different, right? You don't have to be different in every way from your competing agencies, but what is the one thing that you do a little bit differently? Maybe it's your viewpoint. Maybe it's how you even think about SEO. Maybe you're saying like everybody else who does it does this one thing that just doesn't matter, and we do it differently. All right. And Hans, you might have more specific examples of what that could be. But if you go
Yeah,
through this positioning exercise, you can kind of uncover like, how are you different? And who are the people, who are the clients, who's the market that really cares about that difference?
I think with SEO specifically, there are a few cool ones to highlight. So one is because a lot of your customers probably have received an SEO proposal before, or like have had some interaction about this. There's a lot of overpromising. So compared to some other industries, it's a relatively low trust environment. So it's not about like, we're going to get you number one on Google. That kind of gets, if that's really prominent in your proposal, they've kind of heard that a lot before. And it's much more about like, like what makes your agency like reliable, your experience, your expertise, your insights, your ability to kind of understand this customer. For example, similar customers you have, the thing you're specialized in. All these things really add to the table at this stage a lot. Like that makes you really stand out from anyone else.
Yeah, great examples there. So when you know your positioning, you basically want to just make sure that that's clear throughout your entire proposal. So here are the elements of the winning proposal. What you're seeing is actually a template it's a new template that we put together that you'll have access to at the end of this webinar if you want to use this yourself. It's a good starting point to then, update for your own branding, put your own relevant content in. But these are the essential elements of a winning proposal. We're going to go through them, and there's actually a few extra sections that are really specific to SEO agencies that we included in here. So I'm going to do a couple of these. Hans is going to jump in and talk about some really SEO specific slides or
Yeah.
pages that you'll want to include in your proposal. I always start with the executive summary though, because I always say that this is the most and should be the most personalized part of your proposal, right? A lot of your proposals can be boilerplate, they can be templated, and should be. And we're going to talk about why in a little bit, but the executive summary is your chance to reflect back to the client what you heard during discovery. Because at some point you had a conversation with somebody and they said, we have a business problem that we think you might be able to solve. And so if like a lot of proposals will just sort of talk on and on about the agency and, maybe it's awards they've won or clients they've worked with. And that's important, right? That's social proof. But you really want to lead with, okay, this is the thing you actually care about. And I heard that. So if the client's saying, I really have a revenue problem or I really have a marketing problem, hone in on those business issues more so than the specifics of what you're offering around traffic and signups or whatever it happens to be. Bonus points if you include a video in your proposal. Some of our customers do this, and this is really great because, so for example, if you use Loom or Vimeo or Vidyard, we integrate with those tools. And if you actually embed a video in your executive summary, this is kind of you talking through the proposal and actually screen sharing and going through it. So it's kind of like Inception proposals, like you in the proposal, walking through the proposal. But the reason this is really great is that a lot of times there's multiple stakeholders involved in a deal, and you're not always talking directly to the decision maker when you're having these calls, right? They're sending it to a buying committee, or they're kind of moving it up the chain. Their CFO has final buying sign off, and so this is your chance to talk to those stakeholders who maybe you haven't had a chance to earlier in the sales cycle. Okay, now I'm going to hand it over to Hans.
Yeah, so adding to this is kind of the pre-sales bit, right? Like, especially with SEO, very competitive market, and that main thing that does make you stand out is usually um, doing a bit of research on the customer, and probably you've used tools, like SEMrush and Ahrefs, and even if you do it really quick, it takes half a day, easy. 2-3 hours is nothing. And doing all that work and not winning the deal, kind of sucks. But the work itself is also quite tough. So if you want to do like an SEO audit, keyword strategy, put together like a sample content plan, um, you can't make any mistakes there. Like you have to be at a level of accuracy. Like if you drop something, like you miss that the customer doesn't have a contact page or something, it can happen. But they'll probably know it the moment you send their proposal through that they are missing some core bits. If you don't know that by then, you could just lose the deal on something trivial like that. So what Adaptify does is you have something called pitch mode where you put in a URL, and a few seconds later, like through automation, we run an audit, we create a keyword strategy, we create a sample content plan, put together a backlink building proposal, and it just takes like a few seconds, a minute or so, instead of 2-3 hours, kind of putting something together that's really personalized, that is like that kind of saves you these many hours of like tedious research. In the next slide, it's kind of nice on how that works with yeah. So how it works with Proposify is like you basically click one button in Adaptify and the data is exported, and it's super easy to then import it into Proposify. In the next slide, you can kind of see how that looks in the template. And this is tailored for every single customer. And you'll have some really beautiful and really convincing data to show your clients, like some really hard work has happened here behind the scenes. You can kind of just do an SEO audit. That's a pretty good way to start. And it really converts well and it's very engaging for your customers. You can also include more, like keyword research and a content plan. Adaptify does kind of create that for you too. This is also not really just like a selling point, but it's kind of where you start, like how are we going to deliver SEO for you? This kind of goes organically back to you, Kyle, to the next bit, which is the scope of work.
Yeah. I remember when Hans and I only have met a few weeks ago because
Yeah,
they're using Proposify, and they were talking about doing this webinar. And I remember Hans actually demoed this for me, and I was blown away because it was just so fast to be able to create that audit, get it into Proposify. I was really impressed. And then, talk of potentially integrating the two tools together. So it's really slick, really saves you a lot of time.
it's pretty smooth. And you do have everything, like you got a really solid plan together, like with literally one click, which I'm quite excited about.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So once you've done this audit piece, which is really like the pillar of the proposal, you'll want to include timelines, deliverables, all that kind of stuff is important to clients. There's ways to do it that are kind of more visual, like you see here, as opposed to just written out, but whatever works. I mean, the big thing that I want to mention here is about technical jargon, because depending on who your client is, a lot of clients are not that technical, right? They know they want more customers from their website. That's about it. But when you start getting into 301 redirects and using terminology that's really common in SEO, you can lose your buyers, right? And one of my favorite sayings is a confused mind doesn't buy. And I always sometimes have to remember that. When I ran a web design agency, I would love to talk about, hey, we're doing HTML5, which was like new at the time, and customers didn't care. And I would lose out on jobs and projects to my competitors who were talking about the business results they were going to get for the client. And sometimes offering services that we weren't offering. And we're like, well, hey, they only asked for a website. They didn't ask for all this stuff. And it's like, no, they just want more customers. And so they would beat me out at jobs because they were able to really speak to what the client cares about. So this is a really important part of the proposal because it essentially says, here's what we're going to do for you. Here's what it includes. Here's what it doesn't include. And you can get ahead of clients making assumptions. Oh, well, I thought you were building a whole website for us when maybe, you weren't. So I always say that too in proposals. You want to not just say what we're going to do, you also want to say what we're not going to do. Back
Yeah,
over
that
to
kind
Hans.
yeah, because that kind of goes to, the next one of the biggest challenges, especially with SEO, is delivering on the scope of work that is promised. Agency life is quite hectic, and even if you have an amazing team, it's quite easy to fall behind on projects. So Adaptify kind of comes to the rescue here. We automate your SEO delivery, so you don't miss a deadline or fail to follow through on your promises. Especially in SEO, like when you put together a scope of work, you really want to deliver on this. Your clients are keeping a really close eye out on this. So this pitch mode feature that you used before to kind of put this together, it automatically saves their client to your dashboard. And when they accept the proposal, you basically click activate site, and then because most of this is automated, we take care of the rest, which is a huge game changer.
Yeah, looks really cool. Okay, so we're going to keep going through the, reminder, we're talking about the structure of the proposal, how to, what each page should include. And so it might sound obvious, but about us, I actually put it sort of towards the end of the proposal instead of the beginning. I know some agencies like to put it front and center. This is kind of one of those things where you just want to remind them why should they hire you and not the other agency that's pitching. So here's where you can include your social proof, whether it's awards, whether it's customer testimonials, case studies, those kind of things. That stuff is important. Generally, I like to avoid putting, things like detailed history of the company, when it was founded, and people generally don't care about that kind of stuff. It's like, have other people sing your praises, why they should hire you. And then let's get into pricing. So pricing is, you can see towards the end of the proposal in terms of how we structure it. But keep in mind, from our data, Proposify, it's where people go first. So the data is very clear that when somebody opens a proposal, they're going to shoot down and look at the pricing first because, that's the number one thing that's on their mind is how much is it going to cost. And then if you're lucky, they'll be able to go back up and read the rest of it. But this is where you can lose people. So if they get sticker shock, if they were like, oh my God, I didn't know it was going to be this much, then you haven't done your job in the pre-sales, right? You haven't given them sort of an expectation of ballpark ranges, because essentially with your pricing page, you just want to communicate to people, like, if people go, oh, okay, that's kind of what I thought it was going to be, or it's maybe even a little less than I thought it was going to be, that's kind of the feeling that you want to get from your proposal. You never want it to be like, oh, wow, this is a huge investment. And you actually want to position it as an investment. You notice we wrote that up in the top left part of the page, right? It's positioned as like, okay, yes, you are investing these dollars to get, much higher returns out the other side. And so Hans is going to talk a little bit about the price points themselves on the next slide, but two kind of key ideas I want to dial in here. Never include just one price in your proposal. Always offer packages, because especially three, like as they say in SaaS, good, better, best pricing is a really proven model to work really well because people tend to gravitate towards the middle package. And the other thing is, like, don't break it out in too much detail, because a lot of times if you say, like, for example, when I sold websites, it'd be like, okay, here's the website project. Here's the big number. Here's how much it's going to cost. Now, here's all the little microservices broken out. Here's how much QA testing is going to be. And all that did was created confusion with clients who didn't understand what all those things entailed. And then they would try to nitpick it to get the price down, right? But, well, maybe we don't need QA testing. So essentially just package it together. It's like, this is the one price, here's the three packages, but each package is one price with all the things we're going to do in it, not broken out and showing the pricing in too much detail. But add-on pricing is really helpful here too, because if you sell any complementary services that, maybe they had to do, if your firm does video production or something, and you want to offer that as an add-on, these are one of those things where if the client's building a website anyway, maybe that's something they were going to hire somebody else to do. We can do that internally if that's what your agency offers. But the key thing here is you want people to be able to upsell themselves. So make it really easy for them to say, yeah, I might as well, if I'm doing this, I might as well do it. I actually bought one of our customers is a YouTube agency, and that's what we're at Proposify trying to level up. He uses Proposify, and he did this like he basically had all these checkbox services. And so I felt it was almost felt like online shopping. I was just like, yeah, actually, we want that channel analysis. And so I ended up buying more than I initially thought. And this is a great way to do that. Over to you,
Cool.
Hans.
Yeah. So zooming in slightly, which is specifically pricing your agency's SEO services. It can be super tricky because in the perfect world, you have margins on everything. But with multiple tools, freelancers, maybe in-house team, it's quite hard to kind of have full control over that with SEO. Here again, what we try to do with Adaptify is kind of slightly different. Is we try to make it much easier to price your services. So with when you've used that proposal mode before, you get these deliverables. They're in the plan. But the other thing we do is we also expose what it costs to deliver this using Adaptify, which are the prices on your site, so what it costs you. And what we recommend is to start at 2-3 times your costs, and then like work on increasing this. There are actually kind of two angles. One angle is if like as Adaptify is kind of like your main profit driver. The other one, for example, if you are a web development agency, you can also again keep the margin at 2-3x, and then have it as an upsell because the recurring revenue kind of keeps that customer going with you. So it kind of depends what your core packages are. But either way, making SEO delivery prices transparent are kind of like really, really important. We kind of really want you to give you kind of peace of mind and not focus and kind of not lose track on this. So you can walk to every pitch with this rock solid offer and also deliver exactly what you promised and stay profitable on every single deal, which can be quite hard with SEO.
Also want to mention too, I haven't been checking the chat, but if people have questions on any of this stuff, we're going to have Q&A at the end. But feel free to post in the chat if you have questions along the way, and
Yeah,
we'll circle back to them.
absolutely.
Okay, the final piece in your proposal must include next steps, ideally with e-signature baked in, because really when you think about it, we're all marketers at the end of the day. If you're an SEO, you're a marketer, and you would never have a landing page without a call to action, without a sign up here or enter your email or whatever it happens to be. So you just want to do the same thing in a proposal, never leave them guessing what they need to do next. So I always say that for everybody, even if I'm talking to, with it's usually self-explanatory for marketers, but there's a lot of industries where that's not as obvious. Okay, so we talked about the structure of the proposal, things to include, things not to include. And the data that I'm showing here comes from our annual state of proposals. So this came from State of Proposals 2024. We're soon going to be launching the 2025 edition of the report. But you can kind of see here from millions of proposals, data points, this is kind of the average, right? So it takes about 17 minutes to send, between create and send. It's about, an hour, a little bit over an hour from the time when somebody opens the proposal for the first time. It's about actually 10 versus 7. So average number of views versus winning versus losing proposals. So this stat actually changes a little bit from year to year. There was one year where actually the more times a client viewed the proposal, the less likely it was to win. Last year, it was kind of a little bit the opposite. So 10 was kind of the sweet spot. 10 seems like a lot, actually. And it's increased a lot over the year prior, where people are maybe closing it and coming back to it several times, comparing options. So the thing I like to really stress here with time is sometimes that actually can be your competitive differentiator. How quickly can I get the proposal to the prospect? A lot of times we don't think of that. I mean, we've all heard of the term speed to lead, which is typically following up on inbound leads, right? Calling them quickly. But the proposal piece, I've had clients, and one in particular, I remember once telling me, "Hey, I was able to beat Gary Vaynerchuk." I'm sure most of us all know who Gary Vaynerchuk is, runs a very big agency called VaynerMedia, has been around a long time. And they were like, yeah, we beat them out at a job because they were going to take 2 weeks to get a proposal to the client. And we got it to them the same day. And they said, oh, well, we already have your proposal, so we might as well just go with you guys. It seems crazy. It almost shouldn't be that way, but it is. And so the thing is, if you're taking a long time to get a proposal to your buyer, if it's taking a day, if it's taking a week, that can be time that your competitor is swooping in and winning the deal out from under you. So, when we talk about this a lot as Proposify, we're talking about template strategy and having content library filled out and making it very drag and drop and making your proposals very modular so they're easy to snap together and having a really good workflow with automation set up. The stuff Hans is showing now kind of takes that to another level. And so I'm going to I'll get into the recap in a second, but that's one thing I just want to talk, maybe Hans to talk about is the audit piece, why that's so important and how much time it typically takes.
Yeah, that's why I think the Proposify and Adaptify like collab is so cool because you're right. Someone says, "Hey, I'm interested in buying your services," and then the longer it takes to send through a proposal, you decrease your odds. So if you're quick, you beat other ones. SEO, this is your whole argument is times 10. Like there are a lot of marketing agencies that offer SEO services. Like being first, like makes you stand out straight away. So making sure that you can send through a well-researched, well put together proposal as quick as possible is super useful. So you're right, like having a template together there, but also having some automation, like things like AI is getting quite useful with stuff like this. This is why this is what Adaptify, of course, uses to kind of put together some really smart stuff also in minutes. It's a game changer. Like it's 2025. Like you can use that now. I'm excited about this. This wasn't possible. It used to generally take easily a couple of days, especially if you have a slightly larger team, to send through something serious. And now it literally takes a couple of minutes, and it's super useful in like proposals that can generally convert. 17 minutes is we could probably beat it now. Like
Yeah.
things are quicker now. So maybe this year the report the time will go down. I'll keep an eye on it.
Yeah,
Might
we'll
actually
have to
be.
report on that.
Yeah.
It really wasn't. I mean, I don't know if it still is, but back in the day, showing my age here, but like in the 2000s, you go to an agency website, go to their contact page, and say it would often say, allow for 2 weeks for us to get back to you with a proposal. And I don't know if agencies are still doing that, but that just seems like an eternity today. Like nobody's going to sit around for 2 weeks waiting on a proposal.
We actually had a supplier for some like someone we were working with, an agency. And they were like, yeah, we'll send through a proposal. And then it took them a week and a half, and we already had found a freelancer to help us. So yeah, it still happens.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah,
Yeah.
we hear the demos too. So it's still a thing, unfortunately.
And the thing is, when you're an agency, obviously, like your time is your greatest asset. So taking time away to do kind of speculative work that's not guaranteed income, that's not billable, um, it's hard to be able to allocate that time, really, right? So that's why we want the automation, the tools in place. Mert, who's on my team, actually, he's been answering a couple questions in the chat. Mert, if you want to share the YouTube video that we launched last week, it basically talks about a way to think about a template strategy for your proposals. We use what we call the pizza analogy. So a lot of times when people are doing proposals, they'll do what we call like the kitchen sink template. So it includes everything that they possibly offer, and then they start cutting it down whenever they want to customize it for a client. And so basically we use like this pizza analogy to think about it. Like your template is the bread, the sauce, and the cheese. And that's kind of like all the standard stuff for everybody. But then the toppings are where you can now start customizing it. So every client's going to be a little bit different in terms of what they offer. And so you want to have things very easy to kind of pull from the library and add into your proposal as you need them. And Josh, yeah, great point. No, nobody's waiting 2 weeks for a proposal. In my experience, you don't want to wait more than 48 hours. Totally true.
That video is a great resource, by the way. Proposify is really on it with this kind of stuff.
Awesome. Thank you. So, just a couple takeaways. I know we had kind of a longer slot allocated for this webinar, but we're keeping it pretty tight, pretty focused. We talked about positioning. Highly recommend checking out April Dunford's framework and going through that yourself so that you can stand out and make that clear in your proposal. We talked about the various elements of an effective proposal, the slides that you want. Remember, people are not going to read 20, 30, 40 pages. 7 to 10 pages of a proposal is kind of the sweet spot you want to go for. And you want to include and leverage technology like Adaptify ways to make that audit quick and easy, effective, and make it really easy to embed in your proposal. Because we talked about speed, how important that is, 48 hours. You want to get it to them within 48 hours. And that is pretty much it. We're gonna share the offer in a second, but is there any questions people had on any of this stuff? Anything you want us to dig into, whether it's the tools, whether it's sort of the proposal strategy? Um, Let us know in the comments if you have any questions. And while we wait for that, we are going to mention, so there's a couple of resources we're giving away here. The template that you've seen in this slide deck as we've been going through it, that is available through this link. And Mert, I think, is going to share the link where you can check out that template. Where, if you want to sign in and use it, play around with it, feel free to do that. That's free. And then there's an offer too for Proposify. So if you like Proposify, if you want to check it out, there is a 20% discount on the basic and team plans. Where if you put in 20 off SEO webinar, that's all one word, all caps. You can get 20% off of the discount you already get for signing up to annual. So you can keep that in your back pocket, play around with Proposify, take it for a 14-day trial, and see if it's something that you want to use for your proposals going forward. And then Hans, do you want to talk about your offer as well?
Yeah, so if you aren't using Adaptify yet, Pitch Mode is now a standalone product. I did recognize some customers on our call. It is included. We've rolled it out I think last month for all our existing customers. But for new customers, Pitch Mode is a standalone product, which means you can use it just for sending proposals, and it is a 50% discount for webinar attendees. We'll send a link through after the webinar as well, and it should already be in the email as well. If you have any questions as well, just respond to that email, and because it comes from me, so I can straight away answer it because I'll probably recognize your name. So yeah, that is pretty much that bit. I'm excited to hear about the questions as well.
Yeah, there was a question on ROI. So Winston asked, do you have ROI modeling? I assume that's in Adaptify that he's asking.
Yeah, I want to know a bit more about what do you mean with ROI modeling. So because like one thing that we kind of covered before was what like kind of you have this gap between what you should charge your customers and what your costs are. That is incredibly easy to see. If it's about like financial investment in SEO and then results, we are actually behind the scenes started tracking this. It's yes, yeah, impact to return for SEO. Yes, it's a great question. So it's kind of subject. When we started, we're like, cool, yeah, we'll add an ROI number. It's actually quite hard to track fully accurately. So we started kind of behind the scenes as a number. We haven't exposed it to our customers because we want to be 100% confident about this number, which is basically what is the equivalent of like what you would pay if you use Google Ads to get these clicks to your content, and that is the main number. The difference is a little bit is like, how do you map this? How do you present this? Because typically with SEO content, you don't, if you stop, where with ads, if you stop spending, you have 0 clicks. With SEO, if you stop if you've invested it, you'll keep getting clicks for a while. Maybe not 20 years, but definitely, like something that's ranking today will typically rank as well. A couple of months from now, a couple of years from now, this like if you get a few hundred clicks on a piece of content, it's going to get clicks, a few years from now as well, very likely. And you kind of have like a nice V curve where suddenly you get really profitable, which can sometimes take some time. So we're working on modeling this. What I would say is 0 to 1 is always a little bit scary, but it's usually when your customers are asking about it or when this is part of a conversation, it's almost always a good idea because it's something that once you start getting some clicks, you start getting some traffic, that's just kind of permanent, and it just works. But yeah, do hit me up about this. This is one thing that I'm really interested in, and we're kind of tracking behind the scenes a little bit. But every site is different, but some sites are insanely profitable, which I really like. Like 50x, 100x, 200x return. These are nice numbers.
Mm. I don't want to open a can of worms here too, but like I'm just thinking, I was just looking at Google Analytics for our site, Proposify, and one of our highest traffic terms within the top 10 is how to insert a signature in Word. It brings like a ton of traffic, but it's not really high quality traffic because like a lot of people who are searching that was probably not looking into necessarily buying Proposify. So I'm not sure how that plays into the ROI of like you might be getting tons of traffic from it,
Yeah.
but it's not always necessarily converting a lot.
Yeah, that's why it's quite kind of nice to use how much would you pay, because that would be a very cheap ad because there's no commercial intent. So the total dollar number of that specific traffic would be much lower than like proposal software. Like that would be a much more expensive. So that is actually already fairly easy to answer. Um, but there's always a subjective element to it, like how much do you value that traffic? Because you know your audience best.
Right.
So yeah, exposing that number is something that I think we have like a keyword update, so that we might roll it out this quarter. But there's always a little bit of like you can probably, especially if you know your customers well, you can probably extrapolate or like downplay that number a little bit. If it's like an extremely high number, it might be a little bit lower in reality, or the other way around, which is for if it's a law firm, you know, one click could be $20,000. So um, so it's always a little bit subjective, but there's definitely just having some base numbers already helps a lot.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Joe asked, any plans to integrate with Stripe? I can say on the Proposify side, we do actually integrate with Stripe. Even on our basic plan, we offer a Stripe integration, so you can actually connect it, get paid when your customer signs your proposal. So you can actually say, "Hey, I want to invoice or I want to collect 50% upon signing." You can do that with our Stripe integration.
One major win for Proposify here. That's an amazing achievement.
Awesome, awesome. Okay, excellent. Someone should add that to the site. Yeah, I think it's in our integrations, but we should promote it more than we do.
You know what? I didn't know this. This is a huge, like, even I didn't know this. And I've used Proposify. This is a big deal. Like you're right. We should have plugged this even in the webinar more. So let's plug it now. You know,
Integrate
when
with Stripe.
yeah, like taking payment is a huge deal, especially for the audience that we work with. So that's amazing. Great question, Joe. Thanks for asking this. It's a good answer for me too.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's with your own Stripe account too. So we don't take any of those fees that, any fees you pay on it will just come from Stripe. But yeah, no, it's great. It's a great way to just collect that payment, whether it's full or partial upon signing. And the hard thing with a SaaS company is you get so many features over the years that you can't stuff them all on one page. So sometimes these features get buried and people don't know about them. Okay, well, unless there's any other questions, we will wrap this up. People did ask about the link to the recording being emailed. So if you've registered for this webinar, you'll get an email sent to it. We'll also include some of these coupon codes or discounts in the email for your convenience. But okay, wait, we have someone else in the chat. Josh asked, I missed the beginning of the webinar. How are we increasing speed? Right now, I think we are sending the proposal, then sending the invoice, then sending the contract. Is there a way to streamline with these systems? Yeah, I think I can answer this one. So that's, I think, part of the value of Proposify. I don't know which page I'm trying to go to, but um, one of the nice things is you can send a proposal, you can embed the contract in the proposal with the pricing, with the signature. And like we said, if you integrate with Stripe, you can just collect payment upon signing. But the other thing we do is we integrate with different invoicing tools like QuickBooks, FreshBooks, tools like that. So you can also have it like if you have a pricing grid, like let me see, where was the pricing page? Right. Let me go back one. Okay, so if you're using Proposify and you use our pricing tables, then what will happen is if the client selects, starter package and some of these add-ons, if you're connected to say QuickBooks, then when they accept the proposal and sign it, it will just generate the invoice in QuickBooks with all of those line items selected. And then if you want to, you can go into QuickBooks and send that to your client. So there's a lot of different ways to create more automation and speed. All right, see you, Joe. Joe says he's got to jump. Appreciate the webinar. Awesome. Well, thank you all for attending this. Thank you,
Hey there.
Hans, for co-hosting this webinar with me. Enjoyed chatting with you. So
Yeah.
we are going to end it here. But thanks everyone for joining. We'll send some stuff over email, and everybody have a great day.
All right, see you later. Thank you, Kyle.
Thank you.